Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for My Hero Academia, Chapter 283. So, with this chapter, we catch up with the group who were engaging Gigantomachia, or more to the point, the students who survived his rampage. And while we obviously knew they wouldn't die, I like how the fact that they did survive serves as its own reality check to the students that, more often than not, the life of a hero, and especially when you're in the middle of a war, that basically means that more often than not you survive on nothing but pure dumb luck, and that's exactly what kind of happened here. They were lucky enough that Gigantomachia and the League didn't see them as worthy opponents, and one thing I loved that one thing, and I loved how like it just kind of we weren't strong enough. We didn't. It kind of created this atmosphere of we weren't strong enough. We couldn't have done anything, and I loved that. And one thing I loved that emphasized this point is how Horikoshi used that cover page to portray everyone's disbelief and realization of this fact through nothing more than their facial expressions, and the look on each of the students' faces tells a whole story in itself, as it really just looks like they're processing the reality of this path they've chosen, even more so what being in a war really means, and how they're and how they're just kind of processing how weak they are. Like this was definitely a reality check to the students that made them realize, despite how strong we've gotten, we're still nothing but weak students. Like that's the thing. They're still, despite how strong and much they developed, they're still not at the level in which they need to be. So it really opens up a can of worms that they've finally realized how weak they are. And to be honest with you, I couldn't be more excited to see how every single one of them develops from here. Because now with this like doubt in their strength and abilities, they can only come out stronger and more resolute. Of course, that wasn't only the that was, of course that was only the beginning of the craziness with this chapter, as we once again cut back to the fight between Shigaraki and Izuku. And right out of the gate, I love the fact that Shigaraki being released early from his containment unit and the process not being complete has actually come back into play here, because now, well, not only does it actually provide a very clear weakness to exploit, at least for now, but also how this whole situation with Shigaraki ties back so beautifully to one of Aizo's earliest lessons that he basically taught Izuku about how there won't be anyone to save him if he can't control his quirk, except in this case, it's not Izuku, it's Shigaraki, who's basically now in more or less the same place that Izuku was in very early on in the series, unable to fully control his quirk. And I'd even go so far as to say that Shigaraki right now is in even more vulnerable state than Izuku ever was, seeing as how it's not just a few bones bones that Shigaraki's that are breaking for Shigaraki, but his entire body is basically breaking down because he doesn't have full control of the quirk. However, the one area where I doubt that lesson applies to Shigaraki is not having anyone to save him. Like I think what's going to happen here is that Izuku is going to just barely just be on the precipice of defeating Shigaraki, and then at that very last minute, Gigantomachia and the League are going to show up in order to save him. Like I think that's the one area of this where or basically where that whole lesson doesn't necessarily apply to Shigaraki, because even though he even though he probably will end up in a state where he'll be unable to use his quirk, uses quirk, he is going to have people who are going to be willing to save him. And that rule doesn't necessarily, and just because that rule applies to heroes doesn't mean that rule necessarily applies to villains though. And it's just kind of a very interesting duality there, like that. Yeah, the same lesson that long ago that Aizawa had taught Izuku is now being applied here as well. Um, Now, with that said, I do admit. Now, with that said, I'm on Izuku's side of things. We basically see how he's taking this fight to the air, and how he's pretty much ready, willing, and able in order to face like from Shigaraki down with everything he's got. So in that sense, I think like this is gonna be probably one of the most epic brawls ever, as it's basically a test. I like how this whole fight in itself, it provides a test to just see how far Izuku has come, and how ready he actually is in order to face down like from Shigaraki, who's basically the successor to pretty much all to basically all for one. So this really is a perfect setup of the duel between the successors. It's just a matter of how ready Izuku is and how ready Shigaraki is. Like I said, Izuku himself, he has come a long way, and this is what he's been training for. But at the same time, neither do I think he's. Again, this is just a test to see how ready he really is. And while I'm sure he is more than ready, I get the feeling there's going to be something that say I'm not ready yet. I'm close, but I still need to get stronger. I think that's kind of what this whole fight is building on to. Now, if there is one problem I have with this setup though, is that I do feel there is a slight aspect of convenience to the fact that Izuku can use the pretty much floatability like as well as he can. Like it looked like he didn't, just from reading this chapter, it looked like he didn't really have much trouble tapping into from Shinana's floatability. But maybe it's gonna be a thing where like all other times like all other times, and specifically with Black Whip, there's going to be there's going to be a level of difficulty for him to control it like during the battle itself. That's what I'm hoping to see anyway, because like the big thing is with this. The big thing is with this is that even though Izuku's grown stronger, I think one of his areas that he still has to work on is aerial combat. So like aerial combat is in a way it's still new territory for Izuku. So I'm hoping it's a situation where we're gonna see him like struggle just a little bit in order to maintain the quirk's control of float, while while at the same time like fighting Shigaraki. That's one thing I'm hoping for, because one thing I don't want to see happen right now is just seeing him whip around the sky like Doflamingo. Like that's kind of, I think, the main crux of my concern here, is that I don't want to see him just so naturally kind of like just pretty much fly through the air. I want to see him kind of like just struggle a little bit in order to control the quirk itself. Um, Now, one interesting thing we learn is that the basis for the creation of the Nomus originated from Shigantomakia. And while I'm sure the good doctor only meant appearance-wise, it is fascinating to see how a good chunk of everything that's happened in this story thus far with the villains has, in some way or another, revolved around Gigantomachia. Because if you think about it, he has an even bigger role in all this than Shigaraki, despite the latter being called the king. So you just kind of want to know how much more purpose does he basically serve in the narrative of basically Shigaraki being the next all for one, and how do these two and how do the two like Shigaraki and Gigantomachia like How do they tie together? That's kind of the big question I've got. Um, but yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and listen to Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Enemy, signing off. Later, guys.